Red Squirrels Northern England have established a programme of standardised red and grey squirrel monitoring at selected sites across Northern England, which started in 2012. Each monitoring point is located within a defined tetrad, a 2 km by 2 km square. The network of tetrads, approximately 300 sites, are surveyed each year using either baited visual transects, baited trail cameras or observed feeding stations. The collection of data using these methods contributes towards a detailed understanding of red and grey distribution over time across the project area. All methods mentioned in this video are based on surveys lasting 15 days. Locate a site within good quality squirrel habitat, such as mature woodland containing some or all of oak, beech, hazel, pine, larch or mature coniferous species. If you find a site with signs of squirrel activity, for example drays, nod hazelnuts, chewed or stripped cones, this would be suitable. For baited visual transects stretching for 1 km, establish whether the woodland is suitable. For example, ensure that the route is accessible for surveyors. Once a location has been identified, ensure access permission has been granted. On day 1, erect a feeding box in a suitable position where it can be easily monitored. Position it on a tree at around eye height to allow for easy feeder filling and cleaning. Fill the feeder with suitable squirrel mix. Make sure to choose a spot away from public footpaths or other areas where the equipment is at high risk of theft. Ideally, the camera should be attached opposite the feeder at a distance of around 3 meters. Switch the camera to on mode and take a test image to make sure the feeder is in the frame. Review your test image and adjust as needed. Record the exact location of the feeder. A 6-figure grid reference will suffice, or record the full 10-figure grid reference if you are using a GPS device. Attach 2 sticky pads to the underside of the feeder box lid. This provides a backup in the event of camera failure or unclear images. Return to the feeder around day 7 and rebait as needed. Do not allow the feeder to become completely empty. Return to the survey site after 15 days. If you are surveying multiple camera sites, remove the SD card and place in a sample bag. Remove the camera and feeder and discard any unused bait. Remove the sticky hair pads, cover loosely with baking paper, and place in a sample bag labelled with the grid reference, date, site name and your name. Clean the feeder with a disinfectant such as Virkon S. To review the camera images, insert the SD card from the trail camera into your computer. View each image recording what you see. Observed feeder surveys are often conducted in gardens. 3 separate 1.5 hour observation periods take place during the 15-day survey. On day 1, place a feeder box in a suitable position where it can be easily monitored, positioning it around eye height to allow for easy filling and cleaning. Fill the feeder with suitable squirrel mix and attach 2 sticky pads to the underside of the feeder lid. Record the exact grid reference of the feeder. Carry out the first survey on any one day during days 1 to 5. The survey should take place during daylight hours, preferably in the morning, and should involve continuous observation of the feeding station for 1.5 hours. Record the number of species seen at any one time, for example 2 reds, 1 grey, or both species. At the end of day 5, remove the sticky hair pads, Cover loosely with baking paper and place the pads in a sample bag labelled with the grid reference, date, site name and your name. Install new sticky pads for the next observation period. Rebait and disinfect the feeder as needed. Carry out the second survey during days 6 to 10, following the same procedure as the first observation survey. Collect the sticky pads at the end of day 10 and place them, wrapped in baking paper, in a new sample bag. Install new sticky pads for the final observation period. The final survey should be carried out during days 11 to 15, again following the same procedure. As with previous surveys, collect the sticky pads, wrap in baking paper and place into a new sample bag, labelling with the appropriate information. Establish a 1 km route through suitable habitat, in particular open woodlands containing Scots pine, larch or broadleaf species. Ensure that the potential transect route falls entirely within the allocated area. For example, if you are using tetrads, 2 km by 2 km squares, ensure your transect route falls within the allocated square. Mark out the transect using a measuring device, marking each 50 metres with a marker, or record waypoints with your GPS, making notes with reference to start point, finish point and the location of hair tubes. Transects do not necessarily need to follow continuous lines within a woodland. If open ground is present, surveyors can disregard this area and continue to establish the 1 km route in an adjacent block. Once the transect route is marked out, pre-baiting can start. On day 1, bait the transect route every 50 metres with a mixture of maize, sunflower seed and peanuts. Scatter 3 or 4 handfuls of bait around a coffee mug full at each 50 metre point. At 3 points spaced out along the transect, set up a hair tube close to the transect line. Attach the sticky pads, one at each end of the tube, around 2 cm in from the end. Attach a hair tube horizontally nearby on a large tree trunk or horizontal branch. A piece of tape tied to a prominent branch on the route can help you find it later. Record the grid reference of each hair tube. Bait the 3 hair tubes with the feed mix. You should walk and bait the visual transect again on day 4 or 5 and rebait the hair tubes if needed. Following the period of pre-bait, the surveys can take place. 3 survey walks should be carried out on 3 separate mornings over a period of 1 week, starting 1 week after the first pre-bait. Walks should take place in the morning, aim to start around 7 or 8 am when the weather is fine if possible. Avoid surveying on days with heavy rain or strong winds, as detection of squirrels is more difficult and they may be less active. The transect line should be walked slowly so that it takes around 5 minutes to walk 100 metres. It is best to stop frequently, taking time to scan the woodland above and around. Listen carefully for movement in the canopy or calls made by squirrels. Record each individual squirrel you see. Try to keep track of movement of squirrels so that you don't double record. Use binoculars to help you identify any squirrels you see. It is inevitable that some sightings will be no more than a fleeting glance of an animal, when it may be impossible to say with 100% certainty what species it was. In this case, record as unsure of the species. After completing the final walk, collect the hair tubes, discarding any unused bait. Remove the sticky hair pads, keeping the pads from each tube separate, and cover loosely with baking parchment. Put the hair pads from each hair tube in a separate sample bag labelled with the grid reference, hair tube ID, date, site name and your name. The collection of hair samples to identify the presence of squirrel species in woodlands and gardens can be used as a standalone method. It is also useful as a backup method during trail camera surveys. It is possible to distinguish between red and grey hairs by simply looking for key features, however not all hair samples collected in the field are as clearly red or grey as these 2 examples. If there is any doubt, a microscope should be used when definitive identification is required. for example during ongoing survey work where it is important the result is not affected by misidentification.